What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Malari. So in today's episode, I'm going to give a preview of the NBA Finals. Game 1 is tonight with the San Antonio Spurs hosting the New York Knicks. Going to give a breakdown of that series and give my thoughts on who I think is going to win. And then after that, I'm going to talk about some recent news in the NFL, including Odell Beckham Jr. signing with the New York Giants. Odell will now return to New York, a place he played last in 2018. Going to be special to have him back as a New York Giant. I'll give my thoughts on that move, the A.J. Brown trade to the New England Patriots, and the surprise Myles Garrett trade to the Los Angeles Rams. So let's start out now with the NBA Finals. As I said, Game 1 is tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Before the Western Conference Finals began, I thought the West would win the NBA Finals in a close series with the Thunder in 6 games over the Knicks in the Finals, or the Spurs in 7 over the Knicks in the NBA Finals. And there were people saying before the Western Conference Finals ended that the Knicks are going to get swept. And that was even after the Knicks just swept the Cleveland Cavaliers. But this series between the Spurs and the Knicks is going to be a lot closer than people expect. And I'll say this, I doubted the Knicks all playoffs long. I thought Atlanta would beat them. I thought Cleveland would beat them. But admittedly, I was wrong. And I know that I can't doubt their dominance over the last month. They've been playing the best basketball in the NBA over the last month and consistently in the playoffs. Their last loss was on April 23rd. That was in Game 3 of the first round versus Atlanta. And that was a series that they were down 2-1 in before they won 3 straight there, 4 straight over Philly, 4 straight over Cleveland. The Knicks have won 11 straight games, and many of them being in dominant fashion. In those 11 games that they've won in a row, they have outscored opponents by 262 points. That's pure dominance. And this is a team that has so much talent, and they're finally putting it all together in the playoffs. And they've shown some flashes in recent years, but this is the best basketball both ways that they've played in the playoffs in the entire Jalen Brunson era. And this is a franchise that is looking for their first title since 1973. And they're now back in the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999, a series that they actually matched up with the Spurs back in 1999 and lost to San Antonio in 5 games. With this Knicks team, when they have Karl-Anthony Towns on the floor playing at the top of the key on offense, it has allowed the Knicks to thrive offensively because they're opening up the paint, and that spacing is going to be really important for the Knicks in this series against the Spurs. I'm expecting them to do the same, what they've done for a decent amount of the playoffs, where they're pulling Karl-Anthony Towns out, putting him at the 3, where he can't shoot the 3 very well, one of the best big men shooting 3 in NBA history. And I'm expecting them to do that so that Victor Wembanyama has to play as far out of the paint as possible. And it also gives them an opportunity here where they have the drive and kick out option. If Wemby collapses, they have the option, if they can get by Wemby and get around him, go up for a bucket. Wemby's probably going to have to play at the top of the key unless they switch and he's covering someone else. I'd imagine he's going to have to cover Karl-Anthony Towns. In the Eastern Conference Finals, Cat had a plus 79 as a plus-minus rating. That was the best for any player across the NBA in the West or Eastern Conference Finals. So this Knicks team is playing very good basketball at the right time. Jalen Brunson is a guy I've doubted before. Although he's a very good player, I've said in the past that I don't think he can be a 1A on a championship team. With that being said, this year, he's proven me wrong. He's been playing great basketball. Anything can happen in this series. I know my original prediction probably 2 weeks ago would have been Spurs in 7. But over the last week, things have changed for me. My prediction has flipped from Spurs in 7 to now Knicks in 7, which that would be really tough. The Knicks would have to win at San Antonio in Game 7. But the Knicks are playing the best basketball in the game right now, and they're very well rested. You can't put anything past this team. Jalen Brunson's been playing very good basketball. You have Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, 2 very good defensive players that can also shoot the 3 and also score. You have Karl-Anthony Towns playing great basketball. You have Josh Hart doing everything you need on any given night. Defense, rebounding, passing, setting screens, some scoring. Has gotten hot from 3 in a couple games this year in the playoffs. I know Mitchell Robinson has the finger injury, but he's been very good defensively, and he's a player that's probably not going to score much anyways, so having a finger injury is probably not going to hurt him as much as it would have if it was Jalen Brunson, obviously, or Mikal Bridges. And then you look at the other side of the floor, the San Antonio Spurs, they have a ton of talent. They have speed, they have versatility, they have youth. Victor Wembanyama, Dylan Harper, Julian Champagnie, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox. This team is young, and they have a lot of talent. But I do look at this Knicks roster, and I think right now, With the brand of basketball the Knicks are playing, I'm not doubting them anymore, honestly. I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I doubted the Knicks in a lot of the playoffs. And honestly, a week or two ago, I would have told you the Spurs would win this series. And the same thing with Oklahoma City. But right now, this Knicks team, they're playing great basketball. And I did want the Hawks to win the first round series against them because I thought the Hawks played a really fun brand of basketball. I thought that series was really fun to watch. And so far, the Hawks are the team that gave the Knicks the toughest time in the playoffs. Obviously, with the Cavs not winning a game and the same thing with the Sixers, it's obviously proven that the Hawks gave them the toughest series so far. But the Knicks are also beating their teams that they had to go against. You don't pick who you're playing against. And even if you did, they went up against a Cavs team that some people thought would have beaten them. The Hawks, I thought, would have beaten them. The Sixers beat the Celtics. And then the Knicks swept them. They swept Cleveland. They beat the Hawks in 6. You look at that Spurs team, though. Like I said, they have a ton of talent. You have Victor Wembanyama, who is the most dynamic player in the NBA. No one in the NBA can give you 25 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks, and a couple steals any given night. Wemby can do that night in and night out. But I do think the Spurs team becomes too reliant on Wemby. Even if he's not scoring 30 for them to win every game, they're still very reliant on him to be on the floor for 40-plus minutes. And this is a Knicks team that can play and get out ahead. In that Hawks series, they ran the Hawks out of the gym in the last couple games of the first round by running the floor on offense, turning defensive stops into quick points on the other end. That could tire teams out. This Spurs team, they're young. They have a lot of youth. But I think the brand of basketball the Knicks are playing right now is the best brand that I've seen the Knicks play in years. And that's not really a hot take. Now they're in the NBA Finals. They've had good teams in years past, over the past 3 seasons or so. But this team made the NBA Finals. So this team's different than the teams in the past. With that being said, this Spurs team, not many people had the highest expectations for before the season began. People thought they'd be good. I don't know if anybody thought they'd win the NBA Finals. People thought they were probably a year or two away. But you have a ton of young talent in Castle, in Wembanyama, in Dylan Hopper. I think Stephon Castle is the best athlete in this series. So even though the Knicks do play a quick brand of basketball, at least as of late, at least that's what my eyes tell me when I'm watching them play. Maybe their pacing isn't as good as I think, but from when I watched them play in the last couple rounds, this team was playing quick and they were playing fast. And this Spurs team, I think it's going to be a tough series for them. I think it's going to be tough either way. I wouldn't be shocked if either team wins this NBA Finals. And that's why I think this is going to be a great series. But I am going to roll with the Knicks winning in 7 here. As much as I believed in the Hawks and the Cavs and went against the Knicks proved me wrong about those series. And at this point, I'm going to have to roll the dice and say the Knicks win this series because I can't go against them again. They've proven me wrong now twice, and they're playing the best basketball in the NBA. With that being said, the Spurs did just beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that was a really tough series. That was great basketball, fun basketball to watch, and they won that in Game 7. In Game 7 on the road in Oklahoma City, which is not easy to do. You just beat Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and you did it on the road. And beat them by 8 points, 111-103. So this will be a tough series, but I'm going to go with the New York Knicks winning in 7 games. And we'll see what happens. Should be a fun one, and I would not be shocked either way. I could be completely wrong, and the Spurs win in 5 or 6 like a lot of people are predicting. But I think a lot of people are underestimating this Knicks team. And like I've already noted now a few times, and I sound like a broken record, I'm not going to pick against them again because I just have a feeling that this is their year, especially with the way they've been playing as of late. Now I'm going to transition and talk about the NFL. And the first storyline I want to mention is Odell Beckham Jr. signed a 1-year veteran minimum deal with the New York Giants. As I said, the franchise he last played for in 2018. He was traded to the Cleveland Browns before the 2019 season began, which that was a trade that completely shook the fan base, including myself. That was a trade that, when it happened, I was completely shocked. And for years, Giants fans like myself have missed Odell Beckham Jr. And it seems as though it's mutual. Odell has said in multiple interviews in recent years that he felt like he had unfinished business in New York and that he never wanted to leave New York as well. He's admitted that a few times. And that returning to New York was always a goal of his. It is important to note that since leaving New York, he has battled injuries. Last time playing in 2024 for the Miami Dolphins, he only played in 9 games, making 9 catches for 55 yards. So he's not the player he once was. And then in 2025, he was suspended for the first 6 games of the season due to PEDs, and then remained unsigned for the rest of the season. But in 2021, he was a part of that Rams team that won the Super Bowl against the Cincinnati Bengals. And he also caught a touchdown in that game before exiting that Super Bowl with an injury. So he still has potential, and I still think he can be a good player. He could be a good wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. I think he lands more as a wide receiver 3 at this stage of his career at 34 years old with an injury history. He's currently 33, but he'll be 34 about in the middle of the NFL season on November 5th. So I think at this stage of his career, he's more of a wide receiver 3. And I know he's not going to be the same player he once was, but Odell Beckham Jr. coming back brings the aura and the vibes that this franchise needs and has lacked in recent years. And this is a new era for the New York Giants. It's a new beginning. You have John Harbaugh now as your head coach. Harbaugh and Odell have had a good relationship over the years. Odell did play for him in Baltimore at one point. So that definitely played a role in Odell Beckham Jr. signing with the Giants. And if you asked me a month ago, and I remember having my friend Sam Hofstetter on the podcast and my friend Alex Georgievich, and we were chatting about the potential of Odell signing with the Giants. And at the time when we discussed it, I thought bringing him back wasn't necessarily the best move. I didn't think it was a mistake, but I didn't think it was the best move. Since I thought Odell was past his prime, and I also thought that fans are going to have some unreasonable expectations for him and think that he's going to be back to who he was in 2016. But now that the Giants have brought him back, I am so excited to see him back in Giants blue. And at the time, when we did that podcast episode a month ago, I wasn't completely against it. I love Odell Beckham Jr. He's probably my favorite New York Giant of all time, and maybe my favorite athlete ever. So I'm excited to see him back in Giants blue. You also have to note that he also wanted to be a New York Giant again. So this is a storybook, storyline each way, with this potentially being the last stop of his career. He's 33 years old, like I already mentioned. My concern for him about being back isn't about him being a distraction in the locker room, like the media or others have portrayed in the past and reported back in his first stint in New York. I don't think that's going to be the case here. My concerns here are more about injury, which he's had injuries in recent years, and he's also 33 years old. He's not going to have the same burst he once had. He did say today, though, and this is a quote from Odell, in a press conference today at the Giants facility, he said, "The way I had to walk away, it was unsettling in my soul. I have to do this. This is for myself. This is for my son. I want him to be able to see who I am, not who I was, and know that we never give up in our house. You go after what you believe in." And that's the end of the quote there. But Odell Beckham Jr. being back in a Giants uniform is obviously something Odell's wanted for a long time. You could see that right there in the quote. He said, "I have to do this." He wanted to be back and wanted to be a New York Giant. And bringing him back brings back a lot of great memories, a lot of nostalgia, as he's probably my favorite Giant of all time. And like I said, one of my favorite athletes, if not my favorite athlete ever. If he scores a touchdown this fall, I will be celebrating like crazy. It is nice to have Odell back in a Giants uniform, and now everything's come full circle. Odell's back with the franchise that he was once a member of when he was a top 3 wide receiver in the game, and arguably, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the game at one point. He was electrifying, it was a superstar, and had big play potential written all over him every single time the ball was thrown his way. So I'm excited to see Odell back as a Giant, and once that pen hit the paper and it was reported that he was a Giant, I was absolutely stoked. And even with the injury concerns, and obviously his age, you're getting him for a veteran minimum deal, and he has a ton of talent. If he's a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, whatever it may be, that's not bad. There's low risk here for the Giants. And like I said, it's going to bring back a lot of nostalgia, and a lot of Giants fans are going to be very excited about this. So I'm excited to see what Odell looks like back in a New York Giants uniform, and I think this is a low risk, and there's good potential here for a good return here for the New York Giants, considering it's only a veteran minimum deal, and the Giants need some help at wide receiver. Now we saw them sign Juju Smith-Schuster and Braxton Berrios over the last day, and they're getting, obviously now that's 3 wide receivers over the last 24 hours, which they worked out all 3 of those guys yesterday, and then they signed all 3 of them. And it's clear that wide receiver is a need for this team with the Malik Neighbors injury from last season. Neighbors seems to not be progressing as well as maybe the Giants were hoping. So there might be some concern there, and that's why the Giants are adding wide receiver depth. And like I said, the nostalgia, the memories that Odell Beckham Jr. brings back, and the juice and the energy he plays with, it's going to revitalize this franchise. The fan base is going to be excited to see him back as a Giant. And he's matured since the player he was back when he was a Giant. And I know there were reports back then that he was a distraction and that there was issues with him in the locker room. But when you look at Odell now, and I don't even know if those reports were true back then. Who knows at the end of the day, right? I wasn't in the locker room, so I can't really speak to that. But I'll tell you this, from the outside looking in, hearing that quote today, Odell Beckham Jr. has matured. And he's not that player he once was, talent-wise, back in 2017, 2016. But he's also a lot more mature than he was back then as well. So I think this is a good move for the Giants, and I am psyched to see Odell Beckham Jr. back as a Giant. This spring he played in a flag football tournament, and I know that's not the same as running in the NFL with pads on and a helmet on. But he showed some good athleticism, made some acrobatic plays. So hopefully when he does play for the Giants this season, he's right back making some nice plays. And obviously the fan base, like I said, is going to be very excited to see him back. And obviously Odell as well seems to be very psyched about it. Anyways, that'll wrap up this episode. I'm going to talk about the Myles Garrett trade a different day, and the same thing with the A.J. Brown trade. But that'll wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.